The Suicide Squad, also known as Task Force X, C and D-list villains press ganged into helping the US government on their most dangerous covert ops missions. The team has made numerous appearances in the expanded DC universe, from cartoons to video games, and one big summer movie that you may have heard of once or twice before. But what are the must-read Suicide Squad stories for longtime fans or for prospective fans? Well, that's what I'm here to tell you about today. I'm Cape Joel, and you're watching Required Reading. Now, if you're looking to better understand any comic book hero, or super team for that matter, then it's always a good idea to give their first appearance a look. And for the Suicide Squad, that was during 86's Legends crossover event, written by John Ostrander, a man whose name is going to come up a lot in this video. The story as it is dealt with the battle between the new gods alien despot Darkseid and the uber-powerful Phantom Stranger. Mostly this event was used as a launching point for a series of new books, one of which just so happened to be a modern reworking of the Suicide Squad concept. You see, there had been a Suicide Squad previously in DC lore, only those had been World War II soldiers. This new version of the team were reimagined as a group of expendable villains coerced by the government into fighting their battles for them in exchange for time off their long prison sentences. Think of this as like the most extreme work release program ever devised. The original Task Force X was convened under shadowy government agent Amanda the Wall Waller and was made up of Blockbuster, Bronze Tiger, Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, Enchantress, and Rick Flag. Their first mission was to battle a demon called Brimstone, who was created by Darkseid to attack Earth. Despite their dysfunctional nature, the team manages to pull it together and kill the monster by exploding its molten core. Some, like Captain Boomerang, are unhappy that they were more or less sent to die on their first outing, but as Rick Flag puts it, they call it the Suicide Squad for a very good reason. Next up on our rundown of can't miss titles, we have Trial by Fire from 1987. You see, in May 1987, the Suicide Squad was given their first ever ongoing solo title, once again written by John Ostrander. And while I personally feel everything from this 66-issue run is a must-read for anyone who would call themselves a Suicide Squad fan, if you twisted my arm, I would say it's the inaugural storyline entitled Baptism by Fire that deserves your attention. And yes, I know the brand new shiny collected version of these first 8 issues in One Secret Files and Origins are called something totally different, but for future reference, let it be known that in these videos I will give you the title of the trades to make your comic shopping easier. Baptism by Fire sees Task Force X sent to the fictional and recurring DC nation of Karak to battle a group of superpower terrorists called the Jihad, later renamed the Onslaught when Jihad became a little too raw and a little too real. So much of what is loved about the Suicide Squad is really nailed down here in the first story. The team loses member Mindboggler in gory fashion, reminding the reader that in the Suicide Squad, no one is safe and anyone can die at any moment. Captain Boomerang, Digger Harkness, is cowardly and underhanded, showing that this is a super team wherein they have to worry about their own members just as much as they have to worry about the people they're fighting. All in all, it's really solid stuff that I feel holds up even all this time later. Next up, we're going to be looking at Deadshot Bulletproof from 2005. Now, I swear not every great Suicide Squad story was written by John Ostrander, because our next must-read title is a mini-series brought to us by Christos Gage and Jimmy Palmiotti. Floyd Lawton, Task Force X's resident shootist, is one of the most recurring members of the squad, and this book from 2005 sought to give the famous assassin a bit more depth and complexity. The story finds Deadshot in between stints for the squad. Floyd attempts to reconcile with his estranged daughter Zoe, her mother, being a former prostitute who remembers how bad Floyd is, wants nothing to do with Deadshot, claiming that he brings nothing but death and destruction wherever he goes. Feeling that he just can't leave his kid behind, Deadshot decides to use his very unique set of skills to clear out the gangs that have been sucking the life out of the community his daughter lives in. In doing so, he becomes something of a Charlie Bronson-style hero to the group of downtrodden people who feel that they get looked over by the likes of the Justice League. And hey, speaking of heroes of the League, my favorite hero, Green Arrow, stops by for a cameo in this book, where wherein he asks Floyd if he ever wanted more out of his life and if he could ever consider being a hero like him. And that really is Deadshot's life in a nutshell, if you ask me, always being on the verge of greater things, but who can never quite grab it for whatever reason. Now, as you might have guessed, Floyd's past comes back to haunt him, and as such, he must defend his daughter while also proving that he will never be a traditional hero. It's all very riveting and a must-read as far as I'm concerned. Moving on from there, we have Suicide Squad From the Ashes. Believe it or not, there was a long stretch of time wherein the Suicide Squad had no ongoing book of their own. They were, however, kept alive by making a ton of appearances in other series. All that changed in 2008, however, when, you guessed it, John Ostrander returned with a brand new storyline called Raise the Flag. The focus of the story was actually put on Rick Flag Jr., the level-headed military man who often served as the moral center of the squad and its many immoral characters. You see, after a fight with his arch-nemesis Rustan, a member of the Jihad or Onslaught as I mentioned before, Rick begins to question the truth about his existence and his family's connection to the American military and the greater history of the Suicide Squad. But that's just one layer of a very layered story. Seriously, this is like the parfait of intrigue right here. At the other end of the book, you have Amanda Waller, who must juggle an increasingly volatile Suicide Squad with her new responsibilities to checkmate. More on that in a bit. Then there's the other new addition to the team, the monstrous General Wade Eiling, who tries at every turn to undermine both Amanda Waller and her mission. It's a great story that balances the two things I love above all else about the Suicide Squad, and that is gonzo men on a mission action, as well as shadowy backroom governmental dealings. Truly the Suicide Squad's own version of peanut butter and jelly. Now, I did mention Checkmate, and I'm going to make good on that promise with Checkmate Fall of the Wall. Now, if you twisted my arm and asked me who my favorite member of Task Force X was, I would say it's Amanda Waller. She's just so unlike any other comic character, which is why I picked this particular Greg Rucka Checkmate story, because it really showcases how Waller, despite having no superpowers of her own, can make both heroes and villains of the DC universe dance like puppets on her strings. Checkmate, for those of you out there who don't know, is an organization that draws upon a chessboard for its structure, wherein every superpowered member in black is offset by another non-superpowered agent who is part of the white set. This story has some real international spy flair to it that sees the Wall, who is currently the White Queen, going up against some very powerful people who want to see her put in her place, thus the title. And while this definitely is an Amanda Waller-centric story, the other members of the Suicide Squad do show up, so get ready for that. It's just an all-around great tale from a great writer that showcases maybe one of the most important characters in the Suicide Squad pantheon. I love it to death, and that's why I think it's a must-read. Oh, but we're not done yet, because next up on our showcase we have Secret 6 Volume 3 Danse Macabre from 2010. Now follow me on this one because things might get complicated. Danse Macabre is a Suicide Squad Secret 6 crossover that also just so happens to be a tie-in to the mega event Blackest Night. That might sound scary or daunting, but I promise you don't really need to know that much to enjoy this two-issue story arc. One of the smartest things writer Gail Simone did in this story was to put the bulk of the drama on the shoulders of Deadshot, who, as I mentioned before, is a constant member of the Suicide Squad as well as a founding member of the Secret Six, and as such, his loyalties are put to the test as these two teams with very different ideologies are forced to battle one another. Throw in about a dozen cameos from undead members of the Suicide Squad brought back to life by Black Ring, some jaw-dropping action scenes, a crazy finale featuring a Manhunter robot, as well as the major revelation that I dare not spoil about Amanda Waller's own connection to both of these super teams of D-list villains, and you have yourself there a true Suicide Squad classic. And with that, everyone, we enter the modern era of the Squad with New Suicide Squad Volume 2 Monsters. One thing you gotta get straight about the New 52 era of the Suicide Squad is that it was a very rocky road, to say the least, with writers getting axed almost as quickly as members of the team in the book did. As such, the bulk of these stories felt very scattershot. Luckily, Sean Ryan came along and slowly over time changed that. His last two stories were in my mind the strongest of his run, but for my money, Monsters was the best. You see, Task Force X must head to the Middle East and infiltrate a terror cell called the League, a splinter faction from Ra's al Ghul's own League of Assassins who have been stockpiling supervillain weapons and who share more than just a couple of similarities with the real-world ISIS. The big twist is that new member of the team, Black Manta, feeling a lack of meaning in his life, buys the League's sales pitch hook, line, and sinker, which leads him to turn on the rest of his team. Then there's Daniel West, the new new Reverse Flash who battles his own feelings of inadequacy as a speedster and who in the end ends up becoming a true hero, even though no one from his old life, no one who matters, actually saw him do it. Heck, even Harley Quinn gets some truly heartbreaking moments in this story as she attempts to bring some light and levity into the lives of children who live under control of the League, only to be reminded that, oh yeah, I'm a monster too, aren't I? In short, Monsters is a killer story with a ton to offer Suicide Squad fans, both old and new, and if you missed out on this one, you should totally check it out now. And the last story we will be looking at on this episode of Required Reading is Suicide Squad Special War Crimes #1. This comic is so new, coming out the week that I record this. In fact, the video and its editing had to be pushed back just so I could accommodate this story, and it really is just that damn good. I had to. War Crimes Special is a one-shot written by, you guessed it, Suicide Squad great John Ostrander, his first new squad story in many years. As we join the story, a group of morally upstanding mercenaries with powers and abilities equal to that of the Suicide Squad kidnap the American Secretary of Defense to force him to stand trial for war crimes. To avoid an international incident, Waller must send in Task Force X to save the man. What's cool about this story is that Ostrander is getting to put his stamp on the modern incarnation of the team, complete with a funny Harley Quinn and El Diablo getting to use his powers to best effect. Why, there's even a cameo here from Green Arrow assassin Shadow. All in all, it's a classic, back-to-basics type of story that has all the ingredients of a modern-day great. What's sad about this story, even though it's brand new, I get the feeling DC didn't do near enough to promote this book and way too many people missed it. If I do nothing else with Required Reading, I hope it gets people to pick up this book so we can maybe get more special one-shots in the future. Well, there you have it. That's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you all learned a little something, and as always, if you wish to purchase any of the books I mentioned, feel free to do so with the links I provided down below in the description. You get a nice comic, and you get to help the creation of these videos. Everybody wins. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching my newest video. I hope you enjoyed it, and while you're here, why not check out another video I have on offer, or maybe if you're feeling in a supportive mood, you want to like or subscribe. And if you want to support the creation of more videos just like this one, then please by all means check out the Kate Joel Patreon. A little bit goes a very long way, and I will see you all next time.